Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. Just want to throw together a quick video tonight as kind of a bonus thing because I'm just sitting around the house kind of bored. And I wanted to hit making a game in a three-act structure and kind of what I do and how I do that. And hopefully it'll help you guys if you want a little bit of help building your games, if you're new or whatever. If you're even an experienced hand, some of these things can help you. If not, as always, like I always say, this is just advice. You can take it, you can leave it, you can use it, you can avoid it, whatever. Okay, so what I do when I build games typically is I build three act structures. This is something I actually learned from reading Margaret Weis production games, is where I picked it up from a while ago. Um, Leverage talks a lot about doing act structures. Firefly talks a lot about it. There's a lot of games that talk about it. And what the three act structure does is it gives you the ability to develop a game without having to develop every last little aspect of the game at once. So, for example, some people will try to build their games and they'll try to build them out in totality and try to cover every basis and everything else that could go wrong or sideways. If you build a three act structure, you'll have all of that without needing to micromanage the game. So, the first act that you're going to build is going to be the opening act. It's going to be the problem to be solved. It is going to be the primary driver of the adventure. That should be your first act. Your first act should always cover what is the issue for the players, what are they trying to resolve, what is the antagonist. Doesn't have to be revealed yet, but you should have a firm grip on who the antagonist is, what their motivations are, and all of that. Your first act will be developed to give an idea to your players that there is a problem present, that they are responsible for solving it, whether they get shanghaied into it by a board, they get paid to do it, whatever. Your first act should be used to bring them into the game. This is where your characters are going to get their primary motivations. And this is where, when you develop the first act, you're not developing the idea of what your players are going to do with the problem. You're developing the idea that the players should be invested in the problem. And if you're trying to plan around every contingency, you're going to fail because there are going to be players that are going to be inefficient and stuff like that every now and again. So what you have to do is you have to build a good problem. A good opening act will reveal that to you, and it will reveal the conceptual idea behind it of using the act to get those instrument players more involved. Like I said, if you have to Shanghai them into it somehow, maybe they get arrested and the cops are using them as paid informants, or a lord puts an edict out on them and says they have to do it. Whatever, you can do a lot of things if players become interested. But the point is, the first act should be used to get those players moving and motivated for the problem, and make the problem personal to the players in some way as well. Make it matter to them, and that act will come together in ways that you will never believe is possible. Make the players get invested. That's your first act. Your second act is going to be, most fortunately, is easy to kind of follow. Your second act is going to be the revelation of the main antagonist. It is going to be the pivot point in the story. It's going to be, you're going to realize what the crux of the problem is. You're going to show the problem for what it is, and you're going to allow the players to finally discover the key to solving the problem, um, and begin the process of moving them towards resolution. In this act, what your goal should be is going to be getting your players, now that are now invested in the problem, invested in the solution to the problem. So now they know there's a problem, they know that there's an issue, but now they've been exposed to the villainy, the evil, whatever, and they now know they need to find a solution, and they're beginning to move towards that solution. They're beginning to gather clues, they're starting to gather weapons, gear, whatever they need to solve a problem. If it's done right, this act is probably the hardest act to pull together, because you don't want them to jump ship between discovering the problem and resolving the problem. You want them to have a step in between where it becomes a step that says, okay, I'm going to figure out what I need to do to solve the problem. Because you don't want to just jump the villain. You don't want to just destroy the villain. And it's also a very good idea to reveal the villain at the end of this act. Um, a great game that will give you a great idea how this act works is actually Vossen. Um, your first act in Vossen is them discovering there's a Vossen present. Your second act would be them trying to figure out what the boson is, and then once they figure out what the boson is, they begin planning to destroy the boson based on the information they know about that boson, which leads naturally into the third act. The third act is resolution. It's the resolution of the issue. So in boson, the third act is you actually putting together the ritual and performing it to destroy the boson. So in any other RPG, it's the villain gets defeated, you pull off, you save the day, you save the princess, whatever the quest is, and you finally complete the goal. And what you're doing with this is you're allowing the players the latitude to go outside of your script to come up with solutions and implement them. And you're allowing them to interact with the game world in a way that they normally are not going to if you over prepare. And the third act is really fun most of the time because that's where you're going to get a majority of the time. This is where you're going to get the most dice slinging. Because this is where you're going to see a lot of your combats. This is where you're going to see a lot of your skill rolls. This is where you're going to see a lot of that stuff come up. The first act is going to be really role play heavy generally. It doesn't have to be. There's going to be skill rolls. There can be combats, all that kind of stuff in the first act. But you're going to want there to be more of that kind of stuff towards the end of the adventure because that's where they're starting to implement the mechanical part of the game by implementing the actual plan. So, like I said, in boson, you don't always have to make a roll to find clues and to get all the information you need. You make some rolls, but you won't make as many as you will when you're fighting the boson because a lot of the boson actually the rituals have mechanics that are required as well. So when you're doing that, you have this great three-act structure. Three-act structure that you go from the initial part, Act 1, you reveal that there's an issue. Act 2, you allow them to understand who the villain is. They're planning towards the villain's demise. And the third act is implementation of that plan. And if you follow that simple little three-act structure, you can develop a very great session that does not require copious notes, does not require copious amounts of information on your end, and can be done a lot on the fly without even using tables. And I know a lot of people talk about using tables to generate, adventures and all that. You don't even need that. You can use it. It's a great tool, but it's also fun sometimes to just have a three-act structure that allows you to do things on the fly, introduce new NPCs, introduce new characters. I'm sorry, guys, I'm choking again. I do this every time I talk on one of these videos. I get dry throat and start hacking. I think I swallowed a bunch of dust or cat hair. And it's very easy to do in this house right now. There's a lot of cats in this house, but either way, guys, it's the three-act structure. If you follow it, you'll find yourself in a lot better place from a GM preparation standpoint. And like I said, you can do minimal work and you can have a really great game if you follow it. It will not leave you sad at all. But other than that, guys, I do welcome your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns. As always, follow the 3 rules. And other than that, guys, I do hope you guys keep having fun. I do hope to see you guys around the game table at some point.